Hi, this is Carrie Canary Quilt, and it's week 32 of the Dear Jane Quilt Along, and I think we need to celebrate just because we're doing so good. I'm really proud of myself. I'm really proud of you guys. I love seeing your blocks, so keep sharing them with the hashtag Dear Jane QAL and tag Canary Quilts. And I'll find them and I'll share them on my channel. Hit the subscribe button, notification bell if you're new here. And you can get notified of content that I put out and the Dear Jane content that I put out. So let's get started on this week. And I think we're at 4 weeks where no modifications and no variations. So we're doing good. We've gotten a break, or it's just getting easier. We're getting used to it. I have no idea, but I'll take it. 4 weeks in a row where it's we're not doing a lot in EQ8, just printing our blocks out. But anyway, here's my color chart. I like to fill this in at the beginning if you're new here and kind of have an idea what my quilt's going to look like with the colors. So first block for this week is A8 Florence Nightingale. A8. And then H12 Hannah Lou's Hearts. H12. And J6 Granny Weaver. L1 window pane, L1. And then BR6 Frank's Rickrack. And we need to rotate. All right, so let's take a look at these blocks and see what we are getting ourselves into this week. If you're not doing any of the EQ8, I do have time codes to the block construction in the description below this video. You can jump ahead to that. So first block is A8 Florence Nightingale. This looks like it's going to be an easy foundation paper piece. Just 2 sections. That's what it's going to look like. That will take no time at all to put together. Next is an applique, H12 Hannah Lou's Hearts. Just have to print out our templates at this point and figure out where they go. I think it'll be pretty easy placement on here. So we just got 4 hearts that are going to go around the edge. That's another quick and easy one. Next is J6 Granny Weaver. Boy, we've done variations of this recently. This is done by Rose, so again, may not be too quick, but it'll be easy. This is what it looks like. Yeah, I think that'll be fairly quick. We've done the 9 patches like this in the center. We've done these types of pieces recently. So, yep, that's not going to be that hard. And then we've got L1 widow's pane, not Windows pane, widow's pane. And this is what it's going to look like. You know, we've done something very similar to this where we had a smaller border with a 4 patch on the inside. So we are coming up on some kind of repeating patterns here, which is fine. It really does help us out to put these together. And this is done by Rose, so yeah, pretty easy week this week. Finally, we have BR6 Frank's Rickrack. Let's see. This is 3 sections. Now, it'll take some time to put these sections together, but it's only 3 sections. It's not going to be a puzzle to put together when we're done with it. So there you go. Looking forward to this week like I have been the last few weeks. Not a lot to do in EQ8. Print our patterns out. Let me know how you're doing with your EQ8 and how it's going for you. And hit the subscribe button, notification bell, and let's get started making our blocks. All right, starting off easy with week 32, not 22, 32. We're doing A8 Florence Nightingale. That's what it's going to look like. We only have 2 sections here. This corner and this corner are exactly the same, and then what you add on here is exactly the same as what you're going to do here. So I'll just do this corner right here. My pieces are the big white rectangle and the 2 squares, and then the triangles on the outside are dark. So you can find my foundation paper piece cut pieces on my website, and that link is down below in the description down below this video. So let's get started on our corner. I finished this corner. Super easy to put together. So on this one, let's just go over here. On this one we started in the corner and then came down to the square and worked over to these triangles, came down the rectangle, worked over these triangles. So I could put these triangles on at the same time, and same thing with these. You could do that here also. You could start with 1 here and then go 2, 3, and 4. Because this has you going 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I'm going to do that. There's no problem with following the numbers, but I'm going to put this one on first and then go to this one, then these two can go on at the same time. All right, I need a brown piece, and my number 3 is going to be my number 1. Put it over the line, 1/4 of an inch between 1 and 2, and then we can sew on the line right here. All right, there's the first 2 pieces. So what I can do now is trim for both these side triangles. So I'm going to trim this side and the other side. All right, so I can go over to my machine and put both of these on at the same time. This one's going to get oriented like that. This one's going to get oriented like that. So it's off the paper, it's off the paper. I'm going to sew on the line between these 2 right here, and then I'm going to add the other one and sew on this line. And then I'm going to get these 2 trimmed up and we can put them together. Now we can put our 2 pieces together. I'm assuming that the notches will line up. And they do. These notches line up with the edge, and over here is the same thing. So I'm going to sew on the line, and I think I'll iron I'm going to iron towards the white, big white triangle, because that's how it's ironed up here. And there we go. Nice easy start to the week with A8 Florence Nightingale. Second block, another easy one. It's an applique called H12 Hannah Lou's Hearts. I just printed 1 heart and made 4 of them onto my fusible webbing, put it on my fabric, and I'm going to get them cut out and get them laid out like this. So another very easy block to start off this week. I've cut my pieces out and pulled the paper off the back. I've laid these down. I haven't actually adhered them. I creased my fabric, my square fabric, in the middle on each side, so that way I could line up the top of the heart and the bottom of the heart on that crease, and then just make sure I was within a 1/4 of an inch of the edge and laid it down, and I like it, so I am going to iron it down. H12 Hannah Lou's Hearts, and it's Brenda Papadakis' granddaughter, Hannah Lou, is what this is named after. Next block is J6 Granny Weaver. This is what it looks like. We just have rows to put together, and each row is basically the exact same thing, just different size pieces. And you just got to watch where you're starting. You're going to start here on this row, here and here on these 2 rows, over here in this row, and right there in this row. So that's about the only thing you need to take a look at. So I'm going to do one of the bigger ones. It'll be easier to see. My pieces, let's see, I have 4 squares, which are the white squares in here. And then the 4 rectangles are all the rest of the white pieces. 5 dark squares, which are inside here. And then rectangles that are right here on the insides. And then squares, which are the corners. So you can find my paper piece cut pieces on my website, and the link is down below this video. I put the first 4 pieces together. What I did was I did the first 2 pieces on each one, and then I did the 3rd piece on each one. So I was at my machine once, at my iron once. I think it makes it easier, but you could do 1 piece at a time. So those are done. This one's gonna actually, I guess if you want to say easier, it's starting on this side and it's just going straight across. So our first piece is going to be a big square, dark square,
1/4 inch over the line between 1 and 2, and then add our white rectangle. So I'm going to sew on the line between A1 and A2. First 2 pieces are on. We'll trim between A2 and A3, and we'll just line up our edges, sew on the line, and keep on going through the end. And then I'm going to get everything trimmed up, and it's just going to go together in rows. There we go. There's my pieces all cut up. So we just have to put our rows together. I'm either going to line up the edges or see if any of these seams nest and do it that way. And I think I'll iron my seams open. There we go. Granny Weaver J6. I did iron all my pieces open, and that was a fun block. Okay, next is L1 Widow's Pane. This is what it's going to look like. The pieces I have are these 2 little squares are in the corner. All of these rectangles are all the rest of the rectangles you see in here. These 2 dark squares are in the center. All these rectangles are out here. And then our 2 big squares. So I'll put together this center one. These are easy. They just go from 1 to 3 there in those rows. So I'll put one of these center ones together. And you can find all my cut pieces on my website. The link's down below this video in the description. Okay, here's the other sections that I did. This is fun to do. I don't know why I enjoy these types, but I do. And then these are just 3 pieces put together. So down here is the other section that's just like this one. We're going to start in the middle and then come down, and I'm actually going to go around with the white and then come over and put the dark on each side. You don't have to do it that way, but that's how I'm going to do it. So this is going to be 5 and this is going to be 6. So on the other side, we want to start with a dark square, put it over 1/4 inch over between 1 and 2. Oh, I need some more of these. There we go. I just happen to have some shorter ones left. They'll work. I will make that change on the sheet that I have for you guys to download. All right, so we'll line up our edges here, and we're going to sew on this line between 1 and 2, and I lock stitch at each one of these points. First 2 pieces, 3 is right here, so I am going to trim it up. Grab another white rectangle, and it's off the paper over here, and I'm more than 1/4 inch past this seam, so we're good. I'm going to sew on the line between B1 and B3, and I'm going to lock stitch right there. All right, on to B4, which is at the top here. Grab another white rectangle. And we just want to make sure we have coverage between this line and this line. So here below B4, lock stitching at each intersection. Okay, first 4 pieces. So what we can do now is trim for 5 and for 6, and we can put them both on. So there's for 5 and there's for 6. So I'm going to take my white rectangle and put it on here. We'll sew on this line, and then I'll take a dark rectangle and put it over here and sew on that line. There we go. I got both of these pieces put on. So now we can trim for B7, which is the big dark piece. And we'll put that on, and then I'll trim for B8 and put that on. And I'm going to get everything lined up or trimmed up, and then we'll lay it out. So now I can sew on this line and then repeat down here. There are my pieces trimmed up and laid out. Just gonna sew them on as rows here, and I am going to iron my seams open. There we go. L1 Widow's Pane. I enjoyed making that block. I don't know, there's something about going in circles that I like. Last block is our bottom row number 6 Frank's Rickrack, and this is what it's going to look like. So I have a lot of pieces again. All my cut pieces are available on my website. I do have a list, looks like this, that I use, that I will let you use also. Make it a little bit easier for you. So I'm not really going to go over my pieces. I think what I'll do is maybe put this one together, start this one because it's very similar over here. So let's do that. Here's my A section finished. Well, Mr. Jingles, you're not helping. You're not helping. No, you're not helping at all. You're just in the way. Come on. Okay, sorry about Mr. Jingles. So this is just a strip, but these are kind of weird angles. So I'm going to show you how I did it over here. It took me a couple to figure it out. I've marked them on the back here. We're going to start down here in the corner with a white, and I'm using squares. Now, what I'm going to tell you is for all of these little triangles, I cut these, they work, but you may, if you're not that confident of a paper piecer, I would cut these bigger. Well, Mr. Jingles, come on. You're not helping at all. You're not showing them what to do. No. Come on. Don't step on my stuff. So, for the little ones I cut, I'll show you how I've been lining them up. First thing I'm going to do is take my white square and I'm going to line it up. So my seam allowance is literally right here at this corner. So you want to make sure you have coverage there. So I'm right at that corner. Move it up to about 1/4 of an inch. There we go. Now I'm going to take my dark. I'm going to pull it over. This is what I was doing. So I can see my seam allowance, which is right here. And then it's right here down here. I'm pulling my corner over to my seam allowance so that I make sure I have space to hit out here. So that's where I'm lining this one up. This one's lined up at the seam allowance, the white one, and then this one's lined up with the corner at the seam allowance out here. So I am going to sew between B1 and B2. I will lock stitch there because we're going to be coming back and sewing right here. There we go. We have coverage. I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to trim here now between B2 and B3. Next is another white square. And again, with the white square, let's see, here's my seam allowance. Here's the corner of my white square. So it's lined up with this seam allowance right there. And again, that's so we have plenty over here to get out to there. So let's sew on the line between B2 and B3. And I'm going to sew through there and lock stitch up here because our next seam is going to come through there. Okay, there's the first 3 pieces on. I'm going to trim between B3 and B4. All right, next is one of our dark pieces. So again, I'm laying it down. Here's my seam allowance out here, and that's where the point of my fabric is at this seam allowance. So on the line between B3 and B4, I'm going to lock stitch right there. So that's how I'm doing it. I'm kind of coming back and forth and lining it up with either this seam allowance, this corner, or down here with the white, it would be with this seam allowance in the corner. Hope that helps you. Otherwise, you can make the squares bigger, and that will probably help a lot. There's my finished piece. And like I said, you could probably use bigger pieces if you're not if you want to make it a little bit easier. So onto this piece. We start in the middle here, and then we're going to go with the 2 dark pieces on each side for 2 and 3, and then we're going to add our rectangle out here for 4 and 5, and then we're going to add 6 here. So C1 is this rectangle. and I'm going to put it over C2, which is pretty much the width of C2 is 1/4 inch. And we want to take one of these pieces. I made it plenty long so that I have plenty of space for it. We want to sew on the line right here between C1 and C2 and lock stitch at each intersection. And then I'm going to go over and trim between C1 and C3 because it's the exact same piece and put that one on. Okay, there's the first 3 pieces on. So now we're going to put C4 on. We need to trim for that. That is going to be one of these long rectangles. And I'm going to put it on. Here's my seam allowance at the bottom. So I have plenty over here to work with. So we can now sew on the line right here between C3 and C4 and lock stitch at that point. There's the 4th piece. Now we'll come over and do the 5th piece, so we need to trim for that one. Grab another of these longer rectangles. Here's my seam allowance right there, and here's the seam, the next seam we have. So I'm at least 1/4 inch there, and I'm past that. So we can sew right here and lock stitch at that point. There we go. Now we can put our last piece on. Trim for it. And it goes off the paper, so we're looking good here. I'm going to sew on this line right here and get everything trimmed up, and we'll put it together. It's going to be pretty. There we go. There are my pieces. So we need to put this piece onto here, and then we can put that piece on. So let's flip this over and see how it's landing. All right. Looks like this notch up here lines up with this right there, with the edge of the bottom piece. So I'm going to line it up like that. And then now we can sew on the line in between these 2 pieces. I'm going to iron my piece open. Now we can add this piece to this one. Let's see how that's going to fit. And it looks like this notch lines up with this edge. So that's how I'm going to put it on. And again, I'm going to iron my piece open. There we go. That is BR6 Frank's Rickrack. That is a pretty block. That's kind of fun to put together. A little stressful with my piece cuts, but like I said, you can make them a little bigger for these triangles right here. But yeah, really pretty.
All right, there's week 32. What did you think? I thought it was pretty easy to do. Doesn't look like it's going to be a very long video. A lot of these things we've kind of done before in blocks. I think that we're starting to repeat some things. And just because they're easy doesn't mean that they're not beautiful. These are some beautiful blocks that we did this week. So let me know how it's going for you. You can put these out on social media, hashtag Dear Jane QAL, or tag Canary Quilts, and hopefully I'll find them. I will share them on my social media. And if you follow me on social media, you'll see that a couple people have been sharing their blocks, and you get to see what other people are doing. It's really cool to see, and I'm going to be excited. Hopefully people will share their quilts at the end, and we can all see what everybody's beautiful quilts look like. Anyway, I appreciate you. I'm glad you're following along. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button, notification bell, and you'll get notified of this content and other content we've got. And let's fill in my photo quilt. Let me know if you're doing a photo quilt and how it's going. All right, we have A8 to start with. And then H12 and J6, L11, my L1, my L's look like eyes, and BR6, Frank's Rickrack. Wow, let's see, J is just about filled, and I don't know when we're doing J9. I'll have to look ahead. But we are getting so close. I'm really happy with my progress. I'm really happy with your progress. It doesn't matter if you're keeping up or not. It'll always be here, and you can always work on it. Anyway, I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.